You're watching the second episode of GameDevElement, and today we're going to chat about the physical and social aspects of local multiplayer games. So let's get started. Hello everyone, this is Stephen Caruana and welcome to another episode of GameDevElement. Every week I get to pick the brains of some talented people from the game dev industry, and joining us this week is Alistair Aitcheson. Hi Alistair.
Hiya.
Hi, so for the benefit of those watching or listening, why don't you tell us a bit about yourself?
So yes, my name is Alistair Aitcheson. I'm based in Bristol in the UK, and I work as a kind of one-man team as an indie developer. So I do all the art, do all the coding, do all the design, and also run all the kind of, business side of things and, everything that comes with it, I guess. And the big focus of a lot of the work that I do is local multiplayer games. So not just sort of games where two people play on a shared screen, but where people, share a physical space, be that a touch screen or, be that a series of buttons sort of dotted around a room, and are encouraged to make physical contact. Because I'm a big believer that when we make physical contact in games, that it brings us closer together and it gives us an experience we wouldn't have otherwise.
Interestingly though, because quite rightly so, you're mentioning that you're focusing on the physical aspect of local multiplayer games, but I hadn't met you yet, and I was sitting behind you during a talk at some event, I think GDC
Right.
Europe, and the person next to me leaned in and pointed you out and said, he whispered kind of, "See that guy? That guy's a mathematical genius," he said, and I remember thinking to myself, why is he bringing this up? Such a random thing to say. But then I kind of I met you and eventually, and we got to talking, and I found out that you've got a kind of a mathematical academic background, right?
Yeah.
But I kind of have expected to see games with equations, and kind of, why does he bring this up? And it got me curious on what got you into designing local multiplayer games. I mean, specifically with your own particular brand of mechanics, very physical and verbal.
Yeah. Now it's funny because no one ever seems to mention the maths. It's on my business cards and stuff like that. I've got a master's degree in mathematics. I kind of specialised in, what was it? It was, number theory and algebra and stuff. And if anyone ever wants to, talk to me about the Mordell-Weil theorem, then, I'm your guy. But really, I kind of, I studied at Warwick, and then I spent a year at one of the Grandes Écoles in France, and I was, big into mathematics. But kind of towards the end of my undergrad, I kind of decided that my passion was for video games. That, it was the thing that I always talked about, and people would try to stop me talking about it and they wouldn't be able to. And it, made me realize that actually that's where my real passion was. So through that process, I made a game for iPhone called Greedy Bankers, which was a kind of puzzle game. And then that game evolved into Greedy Bankers versus the World, which was for iPad. And I was halfway through developing it, and I had the board split into two sides. So you had your puzzle on your side of the screen, your opponent their puzzle on their side of the screen. And it was all to do with matching these colored gems together. And, you group them together, they become bigger and bigger, and then you choose to cash them in by tapping them. And that gets you lots of money, and you're trying to race to make a profit before your opponent. So anyway, in the multiplayer mode, because I was lazy, I just did both the, player one and player two, put them on the same board and just put a line down the middle to test out if it would work. And then I realized that people could just reach over to their opponent's side of the screen and steal gems from each other. And it was completely accidental, but people really enjoy doing that. So I decided, well, what if I add a points bonus to everything you steal? So every gem that you steal doubles in value. And then people like doing it even more. And, it was this thing that was there. People had enjoyed the original Greedy Bankers on iPhone, but, when they started stealing from each other on the iPad, their eyes lit up. And there were lots of reasons for it. People liked the cheating. People not only felt that they were getting one over on each other, but they were also getting one over on the iPad, which could do nothing to stop them. Yeah. And so, you've got this empowering sense of mastery over the technology, which is brought in by cheating in the physical space. And then you'd see people, start to arm wrestle over the game. I took it to Game City in Nottingham, and I had this, there were these two guys, they must have been about 17, 18, and they got so competitive over it that they actually started wrestling on the floor. And one of them pinned the other guy down on the floor and then ran back to the iPad, which had been left on a table, to finish up the game and win. And, it was like seeing things like that going on, and I'm thinking, there's something really special in here. The fact that people are making physical contact is causing them to open up socially. It's causing them to try and make each other laugh. It's causing them to actually care about who the other person is on the other side of the board. Because if if we're playing, say, Mario Kart or something, and you've got your controller, I've got my controller, but really we may as well be playing against smart AI. But if you have something where people are forced into each other's personal space, then the personality of the other person, the way that other person moves, the kind of physical space they take up, that actually matters, and it matters all the time. And it's a kind of, it asks you questions as a player that you don't normally get asked by games, which is, negotiating these physical spaces, and, when is it and isn't it okay to touch each other, or, and then the incentive to break those rules and push them a little bit beyond what was previously okay. It opens you up personally.
How do you keep yourself revolving around that simplicity, that complexity in thought, but simplicity to play, yet varied at the same time?
It's funny, we hear sort of keep it simple, stupid is a kind of mantra that we hear all the time, and it sounds so smart on paper, but simplicity is a very
complicated thing to achieve.
Yeah, but it's a very nebulous, amorphous kind of idea. And to be honest, like there's two I guess two big things that stick in my mind. The first thing is that with local multiplayer, and especially when you've got that physical element to it, when you've got, the physical element, well, I'll go on and explain this in a second. When you've got local multiplayer, there is no such thing as too simple, because you're not trying to beat a system. You're not trying to beat a computer. You're trying to beat other human beings. So if it's simple for you, it's simple for them as well. So it's going to be just as challenging as it was if it was hard for both of you. So you can never worry about something being too simple, because the other people in the game are going to account for that. They are going to balance it out. I guess, the physical side of it, and it balances itself. I guess.
I understand. It's a level playing field, basically, and it's so obvious once you say it out loud, but you don't realize it unless you just pointed it out, and that's a very powerful thought. I mean, we're not creating AI. You've got all the intelligence you need right next to you in the room, basically, and that's an amazing thing to realize. Yeah,
and there's another sort of mantra that I learnt it off the back of Tap Happy Sabotage and have applied it to my games since. Which is the purpose, my purpose as a game designer is not to create interesting systems. It's not to create, clever gameplay that, makes people think and things like that. My purpose as a game designer is to create interesting social situations. So your thinking isn't in terms of, what's going to be an interesting set of mechanics, and try and work out what's my optimal path through this problem. And that's kind of standard problem design and game design as I see it. But really, what you should be thinking about is, how is this going to make people react? how is this going to make people react to each other? Can I think of ways to force people into situations where they're going to be reacting to each other in ways they wouldn't do otherwise?
You're designing the game to funnel the interaction rather than for the game's sake, basically. So it's a means to the ultimate end.
The game is a means to an end. Yeah, definitely. The game is the facilitator. That's why I always say it facilitates play, but it isn't the object of play itself. The thing that's actually genuinely fun about Tap Happy Sabotage isn't what's going on the screen. It's who you're with. And if the game is forcing you to pay attention to who you're with, then that's what's special. That gives you a different experience to what you would have with most games, and I think people respond to that.
So, Alistair, what should we expect to see from you over the coming weeks, and where can we follow you?
Right. Okay, so in terms of where to find me, my Twitter handle is Aitcheson, which is lovely and easy to spell.
I'll stick the links in the description.
In terms of what's next from me, I'm going to be at GameDevElement in Utrecht in the middle of May with my new game, which I'm working on, called Codex Bash, which is a kind of an installation game with these 4 wireless buttons that involves a bit of logical puzzle solving, a bit of running around, and the challenge is very much to see how well you can solve relatively simple logic puzzles when you're tired out from running around. So that's live at the moment as an installation at the National Video Game Arcade in Nottingham. So I want to use this technology of having these wireless buttons, which I can stick around anywhere, to essentially make these kind of portable installations that I can stick in a rucksack and take to any venue and just run them there. So watch this space.
Yeah, and look for the guy with the buttons in his backpack. So, Alistair, thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks very much for having me. It's been really good fun.
Guys, make sure you follow him. The links are all in the description below. Click on the subscribe button so you don't miss future episodes of Game Development, and leave any questions or suggestions in the comments section below or on Twitter. And that brings us to the end of this week's episode, but I hope you'll join me again next week for another Game Development chat. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all very soon.